Grateful for everyone being here. I guess we're starting now anyway. I'm going to turn my video on, but I got to preface a situation. So I have a clogged tear duct, and so my eye, I don't know if you could tell, but I feel like I'm the most busted person on the planet. But I figured that I have done a podcast with COVID, and I launched this company with 5 weeks of mono, and so a little bit of a swollen tear duct is not going to keep me from uh, giving you the information. So let's get going. Today we're mostly the main purpose of this webinar is to talk about the automated flight features that we added with the app update in early July. When we launched the product, we did not have those automated missions, so like waypoints and things like that. We've added those. We wanted to walk through what those are. Also, you'll get a peek into what the user interface looks like if you haven't seen that, because we haven't done a great job of ourselves of showing a lot about the user interface. So we'll handle that. We also have some users that are going to come on in about a half hour or so and talk to us about their experiences. I can tell you that I have not sent them questions. I have not asked them to say anything. I just basically was like, share your experience and let people kind of know some folks that are hands-on with them, that you could ask questions to them as well. So you're not just only getting your information from myself or the Aloft team, as we are involved in a different way. So let's get going. Josh, are you there as well? Just want to make sure. Yes, no? I know he's here, but maybe muted. Josh?
Yeah, can you hear me now? How
I'm,
about now?
oh, maybe my, hold on. Josh,
Can
talk
you,
again.
yeah, can you hear me now?
I had my speakers muted. My bad,
No
bro.
worries. Am
All
I
right,
coming through? Am I loud
cool.
and clear here?
Yeah, since you're in, you want to talk a little bit about you, your background, what you've been up to in
Yeah,
your own
for
space, all that?
sure. Yeah, so I see a lot of familiar faces on this participant list. But yeah, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Joshua Pruitt. I'm the Director of Partnerships and Strategic Initiatives here at Aloft. I've been in the industry just about 10 years now, mainly focused on the public safety side of the house. Obviously, here at Aloft, now kind of handling public safety enterprise and kind of everything that we touch. But really excited to showcase the new flight planning for you guys today, talk through some of the use cases, some of the functionality, some of the limitations, some of what's coming. But yeah, just really excited to be with you guys today.
Perfect. Appreciate you, brother. And
Sure.
like I said, we'll have some guests coming later. If for whatever reason there is one or two or all of them don't show up, it's mostly me coordinating. We didn't do any practice runs. They know when to be here, but uh, if they show up, great. If they don't, it's my fault. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so just real quick, I'm Randall Warnas. I'm the CEO of Anzu Robotics. Been in the industry 10 years and a few months now. And during that time, have been part of drone reselling, was a part of DJI Enterprise as we lifted that off in December of 2015. Was at FLIR for 5 years, was the CEO of Autel Robotics for a very brief period of time. Overall, I've been a part of 5 or 6 manufacturers during that time. I've kind of played a lot of different roles within these organizations, and so I feel like when the opportunity to bring Anzu Robotics to life came up, I trust that I have been listening well enough to the market to try to bring a quality drone platform into the space. But we're still only 4 months in, so I want to tell you a little bit about Anzu Robotics, what we've done, why we've done it, and what we have. Back in mid-April, we launched the company with 2 products, the Raptor and the Raptor T. Uh, in essence, we license DJI technology and we manufacture that in Malaysia. So basically, DJI provides us the recipe for how to build something, and that includes pointing us in the right directions of sourcing and things like that. And we then bring it into our contract manufacturer and put all the pieces together to make an airframe that again does not have a country of origin of China, and all the data, with the help of Aloft, stays within the United States on AWS servers that are owned by Aloft. Anzu Robotics is entirely American owned as well. But just to be clear, I want to say this out loud. This is not a made in America product. It's a made in Malaysia product, but We as an entity are all US owned, US based. The data stays in the US, etc. And then using Aloft, the software is also developed in the United States. So if you have flown a Mavic 3 Enterprise or a Mavic 3 Thermal, you will have very much a similar experience as far as the flight performance, the stability, the data that you're capturing, as far as the quality of the sensors, etc., because that is licensed technology that we've taken into our products. This is all above board. This was all done with a relationship between us and DJI. It's not like we are mimicking their technology, stealing their technology, yeah, like it is all intended to be this way with a relationship between us two as entities. So, like I mentioned, Raptor and Raptor T, you're going to have the 45-minute flight time, 9-mile range of control from the controller. All of that is the same, as well as the sensor suite that's on them. I just want to kind of point out what those are. For the Raptor, you'd be looking using this for mapping type missions. This is why we added mission planning. And you'd also do like visual inspections and things of that nature. So you have a 4/3 inch 20 megapixel camera that's going to be kind of the main star of the show. And then it also has that 12 megapixel narrow camera so that it allows you to do this 56x hybrid zoom. The zoom capability and quality, obviously, well, not obviously, but we're not talking about that much today. But it is something that is extremely powerful for a platform so that you can keep distance from the target so that you can still get the details that you need. It's really impressive stuff the way that has been built. And so if you'd like to see more on the zoom capabilities, please let me know. And then you also have a mechanical shutter that will make your images much more crisp and clear as you are doing things like photogrammetry, 3D modeling, and things like that. On the other side, you have the Raptor T, which is primarily a thermal sensor payload. So you have a 640 by 512 high resolution thermal camera. It is radiometric. It does not capture in radiometric JPEG, but it does have radiometry within the file type. So you can process it through thermal analysis tools and be able to tune the data as well as see the temperature of every pixel within the image. You also have two cameras, a wide angle and a narrow angle camera for RGB capture. This does have the same 56x zoom as far as the spec goes, but the quality of the imagery is going to be much better on that 4/3 inch RGB camera on the Raptor versus the 1/2 inch cameras that are on the Raptor T. But still, you can do photogrammetry and things like that on the Raptor T as well. So that kind of walks you through the hardware. We have painstakingly spent time trying to bring something to market that can last through the uncertain waters that exist within geopolitics around drones and data security. I feel like we've done a really good job for the amount of time that we put in. Again, we're a 4-month-old company, but we have a long way to go as far as getting a variety of products out into the world, not just based off of these Mavic 3 enterprise drones. And so we would love feedback. So as you have them on the hardware side and the software side, please let us know because we can address those needs and take into account what you're facing so that your organization can continue to have affordable quality drones that you're putting out into the world and capturing data. So one of the most important things for this whole project was having a partner that could detangle software from a stack that was developed by DJI, and then part of the licensing agreement is they sent that over to us, both a form of the SDK as well as firmware that controls and flies the drone. And we have worked with Aloft closely to make it so that this product has no ties back to DJI, does not send data back to DJI, doesn't send data to China, and that we are confident that it is all staying again in the United States on AWS servers. So Josh, do you want to tell a little bit about the story of Aloft, formerly Kitty Hawk, and kind of what processes you guys have put in place to get there, and we'll kind of walk through some of the mission planning stuff as well.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, Aloft, formerly Kitty Hawk, We are a kind of turnkey fleet management for enterprise, critical infrastructure, public safety. Again, SOC 2 Type 2 compliant, ISO 27001 compliant. We've gone through a lot of pen testing. And beyond just the Anzu piece, there's a lot more we do on the fleet management side to support other manufacturers. We scale super easy from zero drone, or from one drone to 100 drones, one pilot to thousands of pilots. But it's designed to be a turnkey solution for your program. We're talking, all of the flight logging tools, all of the maintenance tools, tracking training, tracking your pilots, tracking your hardware. That's kind of on the web side of things, or the web console, if you will. And then in the mobile app, specifically with Anzu, we're a third party, or excuse me, we're the C2 for the aircraft. So very, very similar flight experience to what you would expect from, let's say, something like DJI Pilot 2. A lot of the same features and functionality, but if you're coming from flying anything DJI, it's going to be a very, very, very familiar experience. And again, like Randall said, we maintain all of the data here on US servers, so no concern that your data is being shared with other foreign entities. We essentially put a wrapper around the aircraft and around the data to maintain that here in the US.
So I do want to touch on a few things. Those certifications on data security require annual audits to maintain, and that is those audits have been. I mean, Aloft was doing this well before Anzu was a thing, and so we do want to note that that is not. I mean, they're industry standard audits to show that when you have customer data or when you have any data that you are handling that data properly. So that's what those certifications are. And again, the US servers are encrypted AWS servers. So it's, that's if Amazon has a problem with their encryption or a problem with data, then, it's going to be a much larger problem than just us. So we feel very confident in how we've built that infrastructure. We also want to note that the Aloft Air Control app is the native app that we use for Anzu Robotics. I will talk a bit later about third-party apps because there is a lot of questions about that. When you start up the controller, the way that you will do everything from starting your warranty coverage and your care coverage to doing your initial flights, the native app is this air control app. You will be unleashed to use other things, but I just want to make that clear that we could have called it the Anzu Robotics app, but it leans so much into what Aloft has already built in this ecosystem of making sure that this isn't just about pilots and data collection. This is about fleets and drone programs that can be managed all through one organization. And that was really important for us as well. So we're going to walk through a little bit about what makes Aloft special outside of the app and what you're seeing when you're flying, and then we'll talk about what you're seeing when you're flying shortly. So Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about air control, as far as like why it was designed and kind of the steps that have been taken to get to a point where you truly feel like an organization running a drone program could use Aloft, like you mentioned, the turnkey-ness of it, but also like what are the individual pieces within Aloft that exist that maybe don't exist when you're just using DJI as a consumer?
For sure. Yeah. So again, on the turnkey side of the house, I kind of think of this in three pieces. We have, the not so exciting piece, but to me, the most important piece, and that is kind of the administrative side. That's the data management, because as we all know, the value is in the data, both for, program longevity, getting more budget, getting more hardware, getting more training. I have to be able to show the value from my program. It's also important in building up that culture of safety as we start to move into more complex workflows. Maybe we're starting to go into true BVLOS operations, or on the first responder side with DFR type operations. We have to be able to show that culture of safety, and to me that comes from the data. So on the admin side, that's tracking all of your hardware, tracking all of your pilots, making sure they're compliant with your SOPs, SOGs. That's doing flight requests. That's doing maintenance. We have a full customizable maintenance portal. We can track your specific airspace needs. So that's kind of on the admin side. That's the admin pillar, if you will. And then when we start talking operations and planning and management, that's when we get into the live streaming tools. So, taking the drone, taking what the drone is seeing, putting it anywhere else in the world to any connected device, sub-second latency, high def video. So it's decision quality, actionable data. There's not a 10, 15-second delay. It's not something unsecure like using Zoom or Microsoft Teams, for example. It is true actionable decision quality data from the live streams. And even outside of, streaming things like Anzu and all the other aircraft we support, you also have the ability to live stream mobile devices. Not every scene, not every operation is going to dictate the need to live stream a drone, but maybe I just real quick need to pull out my phone and show somebody on the other end what it is that I'm seeing. Super valuable there. And then, from a public safety perspective, again, coming from a public safety, when we start talking about senior leadership staff, those are the last people that want to remember another set of credentials or another workflow to get in and see the information they need. So utilizing the alerts functionality within the platform, we can provide an alert anytime a live stream is available, and the logic behind that is incredibly customizable. So we got the admin side of the house with all the management tools and all the data tracking. And we have the operations piece, which is the live streaming and the map layers and custom mapping. And then today, what we're going to be mostly focusing on is the piece for the pilots, and that is the air control app that runs on the Anzu Raptor. And again, that's where you're doing your normal flight controls, all your camera settings, all your photo settings. Obviously, I know I'm going to get hit in the chat. There are some things that don't necessarily, Mavic 3 Enterprise doesn't quite equal all the Anzu settings yet, but that is something we are actively working towards and will continue to get better at. And then the big piece that we're excited to talk about today is the flight planning side of things. So that's kind of the three main pillars. And just to hit you a little bit more with some of what that mobile app is like. Like I said at the beginning, this is going to be a very, very, very familiar experience to those of you coming from the DJI side of the house, flying in something like Pilot 2 or even Pilot or Go 4. Very, very similar user interface, very similar user experience. It's not going to be something that's going to require a lot of training against. And the one big piece, and this was always the complaint specifically on the public safety side of the house with DJI, is geofencing. I've always got to process these custom unlocks, or I've always got to submit XYZ, or maybe I need, the QEP unlock. There was always this extra step that I had to go through as a DJI user to get my aircraft in the air. Well, the big thing about Anzu is we went ahead and did away with geofencing because, again, this is designed to be an enterprise, prosumer level, public safety, critical infrastructure level product. Our viewpoint is, if you're flying for commercial operations, you probably have your wits about you, and you know that you need to follow the rules, and we know that you've gone through the correct steps to be able to legally fly in that area without us having to gatekeep you. So completely done away with the geofencing. And then obviously the biggest thing that everybody knows Aloft and air control for is Lance. Hopefully today you'll walk away realizing that we are so much more than just Lance. But yeah, that kind of irons out and talks more in detail about the air control side of the platform.
Yes, sir. And then also, this is obvious. What we were just showing there is when you're talking about mobile, when you're talking about what you pull up when you have the air control app open, but you also have the web portal stuff. Do you want to just talk about this real quick?
Yep. Yeah, so this is going back into kind of that admin and operations side of the house. Again, the full flight playback, all your hardware tracking, keeping up with all of your pilots and all of their training hours. Our reporting functionality to me is better than any other solution that's out there right now, and it's completely customizable. We have gone away from the one size fits all approach that you see in a lot of UAS software companies. We try to make it as customizable as humanly possible to make sure we are checking all of the boxes for your program. So if you don't like our reporting in the custom level of it, we even have a reporting API that we can push all of those data points and all those endpoints into whatever solution it is that you like to use.
So Sorry, I didn't actually mean to go forward, but we'll just hop right into it. So one thing I've been through I've been personally to a number of demos of our technology, our joint technology. And what people say is that the flight experience, again, is very similar. They're like, oh, flies pretty much as how I would expect. There's not a lot that you would see that would be different from the manual flight aspect of things. Everything is kind of where you would expect it to be. Like you mentioned, there are some things that we're still packing into here, and we're also taking that feedback of what is the most important for you as pilots need to be able to use the Anzu products to do what you would expect or more than you can do with other drones. But one of the most important things for us as we launched that was missing was automated flight planning. So this video is kind of showing some of the interface or some of the things that you would do to set that up. But talk a little bit about what I guess the methodology behind the flight planning is, what things you could do today, and what things are maybe missing for future iterations.
Yeah, for sure. So again, the biggest functionality that we brought out is this automated flight plans. Right now, we are specific to mapping type missions and waypoint missions. Again, I've said this a few times. Very, very similar experience to what those of you are used to coming from the DJI side of the house. Flight planning will be very similar to kind of how Pilot 2 and Flight Hub kind of have this function. Right now, you see that third bullet says support KML and KMZ imports. It's a great feature. It's a great functionality. I want to explain and express right now, this is a very, very limited feature today. So what does that mean? KML, KMZ shapefiles and point files. We do not currently support third-party flight plans through KML, KMZ imports yet. This is something we are closely investigating. This has been a huge request since we first pushed out flight planning. You know, some of you have workflows that you've been doing for several years now. Maybe you like UGCS, or you like Pix4D, or you like Drone Deploy, or all these various flight planning tools that are out there, and you don't want to change up your workflows completely. We hear you loud and clear. We are investigating expanding on this KML, KMZ import piece. So more to come on that. I know I saw a lot of questions in the chat there. So
Yeah.
hopefully that hits on it. And again, this has probably been one of the single largest pieces of feedback and requests that we've had since we rolled out the first flight planning build a couple weeks ago. We hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, and one thing to point out is that even though we launched that first build, I think it was like July 3rd or something like that, there we've done an update since then, which was earlier this week. But we're looking at, iterating regularly with Aloft on the Anzu product. So again, when you have feedback, when you are flying yourself or you're holding back because you want to see something, this is very important for us. And so there's a couple ways to get at us. I put Josh's email up at the beginning, but also there's Anzu support at aloft.ai. Again, Anzu support at aloft.ai is one of the best places to get your feedback of what you want to see on the mission planning side of things, so that the Aloft engineering team, as well as the executives and others within the organization, can look at that and say, okay, we got to prioritize this. We're hearing this a lot. It always is better when it comes straight from the user rather than it coming to me or to a dealer and then they digest it, send it to me, I digest it, and then send it to Aloft. So just know that we are trying to put ourselves in a position to receive as much feedback as possible to build the flight for your dream app, or the app of the future for drone use. So you can see the interface and how you set those missions on the right hand side, playing here. And I'll stop real quick and talk about for the mapping stuff. You could do waypoint missions. For the mapping stuff, there's orthos and there's obliques. There have been questions for orbits or requests for orbits. I can't say when air control will add orbits, and that, like, I'm not even expecting Josh to know. I don't know what that time frame looks like, but we are within the next week or so going to be launching the first third-party app within the Anzu ecosystem, which is going to be done by Drone Deploy. So Drone Deploy has painstakingly spent time with our SDK going through and helping us kind of optimize that for development on the Anzu platforms. while maintaining all the features of security and no geofencing, no geofencing, etc. But drone deploy will have things like for data capture that maybe we don't necessarily have on the air control app at this point. So just even using the drone deploy free app to do some things like orbits, that will be available soon. But we do want to make it so that you don't have to add any third parties necessarily to get some of these things done. And so we are going to continue to develop and not only rely on third party apps to carry the day on that. Any
Yeah.
other comments on that before we go to the next part, Josh?
No, so just briefly want to hit real quick. Obviously, processor agnostic again, because so many of you are going to have different workflows. But I did want to address a couple of the questions that I see in the chat. Terrain follow, yes, investigating, working on, hopefully rolling out very, very soon. Again, coming from an end user perspective, I understand the need for terrain follow. There was another question regarding facades. I don't want to give an answer on that. We're looking into it, but again, that is a much more complex workflow than just traditional mapping. So I'm not going to say yes or no, but again, as we start kind of looking into that third-party ecosystem, this might be something you see there in the future. And then one that I'm probably going to catch a little flack for, but I don't care because I come from the end user. We need web-based flight planning. We need desktop-based flight planning. I understand that. I hear all of you loud and clear. Trying to plan a flight on this little screen can be incredibly maddening. Again, I get it. So I have been pushing since day one for us to bring web-based flight planning that can be shared to the cloud and then pulled down to the controller. More to come on that. And yes, offline mapping is something we will support as well. And as we move to expand on this KML, KMZ import, that will allow, again, for pulling or for pushing rather third-party plans into the platform. I see a lot of questions on SiteScan and ArcGIS Flight as well as UGCS. More to come on that.
Where's this coming from? Was that you?
I don't know. That wasn't me.
Well, no sound was coming from me. No sound was coming from you. That was wild.
Yeah, that was, I don't know where that came from. That was
It was, yeah.
strange.
Welcome to Weird Life.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yeah, but equity and what? Equity and fucking
what in the
perpetuity, equity
world?
and fucking,
I apologize for anyone that
Uh,
is hearing this. It's the weirdest sound bite to be
yeah.
replayed multiple times as well, but that's definitely not coming from me.
Yeah, no one else is
And it
on.
doesn't feel like there's any sound coming from you. So let's see how many how many times that could
Yeah,
happen.
that's weird.
Oh, super
Yeah,
loud.
but here we are. Yeah, waypoints. That's so strange. Obviously, a lot of
No
you guys are
way.
utilizing waypoints.
perpetuity,
Um,
equity and
but fairly basic right now. You can set an altitude. You can determine whether or not the aircraft is going to rise directly to that altitude or over time. But essentially, it's going to allow the aircraft to fly on its own while you manage gimbal control. Why is that important? If you're doing large scale events and you want to set up an automated flight to fly the perimeter of this event consistently, every hour or so, you launch that flight plan. The drone's going to fly while you can worry about moving the gimbal. Same goes for automated inspections, or maybe your program is beyond doing volumetrics or intense inspections. You also get tasked with doing some of the marketing work. So the waypoints can be used to set up some kind of dramatic shots. Definitely not like what you get with Litchi. Let me preface that very strongly right now, but definitely can be used for some marketing type workflows. And again, very, very similar to how things are done over in the DJI side of the house.
Perfect. So last thing we're going to touch on here before we bring in our special guest is RTK integration. Um, Josh, I honestly don't know how like RTK loving you are. So I can say I am I obviously know what RTK is, but I've never flown with an RTK hat on and needed to collect data with RTK as my position in this whole space. So whatever you can share, whatever you feel comfortable with sharing. I know people ask a lot about different ground stations and what you could use. I have no idea other than when someone feeds me, hey, it's worked on this ground station. Now I have a new point of reference, but I don't think you could be like, it works with everything, or
Right.
sorry, it works with just these few, and that's how you enable it. So can you just talk about whatever you know on the
Yeah.
Aloft side of the RTK?
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, those of you that need the RTK data, you're doing surveyor engineering type work that you need that surveyor engineering grade data. So yes, the Anzu does support the RTK puck antenna, like you see there. I cannot speak to all of the custom network RTK systems that we support today. That's probably something we need to start putting a confirmed list together. So if you have a specific network that you've utilized that has worked really well, please let us know. Again, I am not an engineer nor a surveyor, come from the public safety side of the house. But for sure, the DRTK2 from DJI will work, and I will work to get a better list together on what custom network RTK settings are supported. But yeah, for those of you that need that surveyor engineering grade data, this is going to be your friend. And furthermore, if there is a need for a specific network system or RTK system that you are using and maybe you haven't been able to get it to work, reach out to us and let's try to accomplish this and solve this together.
For sure. So I guess another place to plug Anzu support at aloft.ai. If you're using RTK or planning on using RTK and you want to know something, or you have specific requests on the EXIF data or what the data looks like, you want to see. Actually, I have a data set that I can share of RTK data, so you can process that and see what that looks like. It's not super fresh, but it still should be the same kind of data. Just let me know, because we want to support not only answering questions, but getting you to a place where you can add this into your workflow and it doesn't really disrupt many things. You don't have to go buy new equipment or anything like that. So I want to invite, I see that all three of the guys are here, which is amazing, because again, there was just not a lot of me like babysitting it, just figuring they would be here when they need to be here. So I think there's Christian and David and Michael. Look at that. It's like magic. As soon as they're all here, and you guys have to unmute as well. David is the only one not present. There he is. Beautiful. You want to unmute as well, Dave, just so I can make sure that when I'm saying stuff, that I'm saying stuff to someone that can respond. All right. Before we go into the questions that I would have, if you guys just want to do introductions, and basically we'll just go down the line of how the pictures are. So Michael, if you want to introduce yourself, your organization, kind of what brought you into drones, and then we'll talk more about your Anzu experience and what you do day to day shortly.
Okay. So my name is Michael Bauer. I'm the chief remote pilot, and I'm a senior consultant at Engineering Systems, or ESI. We're a forensic engineering firm, so we do a lot of accident reconstruction, imaging, construction type work, airplane auto accidents. I've been in the drone space probably since 2014, 2015. Prior to that, I was crashing RC airplanes since I was a little kid. I originally was at the National Transportation Safety Board, where I helped get the drone program started with a colleague of mine, where we did extensive mapping of any type of major transportation accident. So been flying these things for a long time, doing a lot of mapping type work and imagery work, and just continuing on with that as the years go by.
Perfect. Well, appreciate that, Michael. Christian, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Randall. My name is Christian Stallings, Vice President at BAMTech. A little about BAMTech. We're a geospatial solutions provider, really focused on empowering our end users with education. So we're a reseller of various different hardware and software brands, including TerraSolid, DJI, Inertial Labs, Inspireflight, and of course, Anzu. And a little bit about my background. I'm a certified photogrammetrist through ASPRS. And I've been working with drones for about 14 years now. Kind of started with APM 1.5 ArduPilot. Always trying to find new ways to map. That's always kind of been our focus. So that, started with working with, if anyone remembers Flight Test, Dollar Tree foam boards and Canon hack development kits, just trying to find ways to get cameras into drones to do mapping.
Perfect. Appreciate that, Christian. And David, you want to go last, I guess, sir?
Name's David.
There we go. Sorry. Sound wasn't coming through, but now it's good.
I'm the founder of Appalachian UAV Academy. We specialize in filling the gap between Part 107 license and actual skill set needed to be a commercial drone pilot. Focusing primarily on public safety and DFR programs in West Virginia, all of the East Coast. Been flying drones for about 5 years now, and before that, it was my dad's hobby to fly control stuff. Before we had all the GPS to make it easier.
Yes, sir.
So,
So David, as we kind of go around things, I don't know where your mic is, if it's an external mic or if you're talking through your computer. It just comes really quiet. So just if you want to look at that while we're trying to figure this thing out. And I will say one of the coolest things, because I have not met face to face with any of you guys, that there was a poll the other day of how many LinkedIn photos actually look like the person that you're talking to. And it is like 100%. You basically took those photos yesterday and you popped them up on the screen because it's refreshing. It's refreshing to see, the people that I thought I was talking to show up. So thank you guys for coming in. I do want to say that the reason that I had you guys join, and I mentioned this a little bit, is not to just say how awesome our stuff is. What I want is anybody that hasn't flown our stuff or anyone that's looking to purchase a new drone, that they have a true understanding of the experience from your perspectives. It was difficult for me to get public safety folks on in a short notice because they're, not always wanting to be out talking publicly about their experiences. So we have Mr. Pruitt, just in case you want to get, somebody that's been in that space for a long time and their opinions on, thermal data capture or whatever. But again, the data capture is the data you are capturing is going to look the same as whether you're flying a DJI airframe. So as I ask you guys questions about what you've done thus far with the Anzu airframe, what your experience has been like, just try to paint the picture of what did you go in expecting? What has it been like? Even what things you want to see, because this is all learning for all of us, and I think that that's the most authentic way to approach it. So if we just go down the line again, Michael, if you want to talk a little bit about why you ended up selecting Anzu as an airframe that you would work with, and kind of just how you've used it and what you've seen in your period as an Anzu family member.
So, so we kind of got, I guess, introduced to Anzu, seeing it in the news, and then also I know Josh Ziering at Aloft and from the Kitty Hawk days, and I think Josh from those days and stuff. So we saw that, and then obviously with Congress and everything that's going on in the center of the world, we wanted to start looking at what type of options we had for our company, because we are a heavily DJI dependent company right now because of the cost value that we get with the DJI drones. So we looked at it as we operate M3Es and M3Ts across our fleet, along with some other DJI products. So this seemed to be a good fit to kind of ease into the workflow. We're Aloft enterprise users, so we've been using the Aloft software with our DJI side of the drones for our enterprise control. So it just seemed to be a natural fit for us. We do have 2 Raptors now. We just got our second one last week. Gone out and I've used it probably on about 10 mapping missions. I've been flying all types of mapping missions just to test it, and burning up the chat with the Aloft guys when I find something wrong, because I have found some issues, and I guess we can go around the room first and then we can come back and maybe
Yeah. I mean,
hit on
you're not
those.
taking too long. This is all educational, so it doesn't need
Okay.
to be linear. It's fine.
So, from a perspective, I kind of equate this to when the M3E first came out. From a operation standpoint, there were some features in the M3 that weren't there when we first got our M3E. For example, the M3E, you can save 5 RTK. I think it's 5 RTK services for custom services. Right now, that doesn't exist in Aloft. We can only use the current one, and then we got to reload everything.
Mm.
So that kind of changes. When I'm in Minnesota, I use the Minnesota Cores network, which works. When I'm someplace else, I'll hook it up to our MLID RS3, or I'll hook it up to another nav service to get that RTK correction. We've noticed that some of the imagery, while the imagery has been great, it seems to be on par with the M3E, which is what I expected. Pix4D doesn't process it. It doesn't get the gimbal pitch rolls and yaws. It doesn't read it from the EXIF data. It seems to be in the EXIF data because I investigate all this stuff. So I've been talking with Aloft and Pix4D to see how to make that connection. And I do have a workaround that I do that brings it in, and then I've been successful in all my maps or process data that I get out of Pix4D.
Yeah.
But
Well, this is real time showing that like there are things that we intend and things that we know will work. I think partially, Pix4D not being involved in a direct integration yet because we just had the one with drone deploy going on. I think that is partially while the user, is becoming this interface because we're processing data on their platform that should just be data, but there's something that isn't communicating. And so you're in a privileged spot in which you already have a relationship with Aloft and you have a relationship with Pix4D to be that bridge. But we're hoping that we can shorten that path in the upcoming weeks in which we're working directly with the photogrammetry processing organizations and others to make that better. So again, I'm not trying to hide our warts. I'm not trying to hide my crazy swollen eye. If you guys can even see that, I'm not trying to hide any of it. I think that this is important for us to get out. So if you are a Pix4D processing user, you're not getting this drone and saying, what's going on here, and going through the same problems and reporting the same things, that we can address those things before it even touches your hands. That's the objective.
I'll chime in here
go
real
ahead,
quick
Josh.
as well. Again, been in software now almost a decade. So the one thing I will say is, as a software company, 80% of what we do phenomenally, but there is still that 20% of feature enhancements, of bugs, of gremlins in the system that we are constantly working towards solving. So we are going to continue to get better, but there will always and forever be those things we wish were just a little bit better, those bugs we wish were just a little bit more sussed out. So I'll just say that as far as we continue to make the products better.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I couldn't have expected us to launch something 4 months ago and have it be a perfect thing. I know we have a very mature hardware platform and we have a software platform that works, but of course we're going to run into things. The more users we have, the quicker that we're going to get through all of them and get to the next phase.
And if I could just add real
Yeah.
quick, I mean, between the two software versions, when mapping came out in July and the one that was just last week, I mean, the support that I've been getting from the Aloft team to kind of highlight what I see as, I'll call it my issues. I've seen a lot of that change already in the first two loads. So I'm really happy with how they respond to those things and get that in the work. So I know I'm being taken care of. I just know it's just, you got to wait. Things
Yeah.
take time.
And this is one of the benefits of us being a separate company than a large drone manufacturers. We're very nimble. We're taking quality hardware, that's without a question. And now we're just taking, the feedback on firsthand and making it actionable, where it doesn't just go into some circle of buck passing, which happens with it pretty much every manufacturer. It's why I like to be at the helm of one, is even when I was the CEO of another one, it was like there's always someone else to blame and there's always reasons why things aren't getting done. Where here it's like you're looking at the guy that the neck that you're going to wring when it doesn't work, and I'm okay with that. So Christian, do you want to spill the beans on your reason for Anzu, what you've done thus far, what you've seen, kind of following the same path as Michael just laid out?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, our customer segment is varied quite a bit. So we cover a lot of different geographies and verticals. And one of the realities is that there's a lot of folks, our customers, who like DJI products that are limited in their ability to use DJI products. And some of the different geographies or some of the different customers they're working with. And Anzu helps fill that role. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we're very geospatial mapping focused, right? So that's a lot of what our customers do. So when we got our hands on one of the early units, the first question was, does it map? That's what we often do with drones. And so, the early release did not have the mapping functionality, but we started working with it, and we were able to put it in developer mode and install UGCS on it. So early on, in some of the early releases, we were able to run UGCS. With that, if you're familiar with UGCS, you have an accompanying laptop. We're able to do terrain following and a lot of the different functionality that you can do with UGCS, we're able to do with the Raptor, with the exception of RTK from that early version of it. After that, of course, Aloft came out with the new update that had the mapping functionality, which we started working with. And one of the things, again, is said all the time, is it seems very familiar with anyone who has used DJI products, very comfortable with it as far as the controls that the users have with that. It checked a lot of the boxes that we wanted. We often recommend flying in shutter priority mode, for example. You're able to do that. You're able to set your overlap based on how you want it. You can increase your margin, all the different things, for the most part, that you wanted to do with mapping. The one exception at the time, which is now there, is the shutter priority. So that's now corrected. That was kind of the one thing that was important to us that wasn't there, but is there now. Some other functionality I know has come up in a lot of the questions, and the things that we were able to test with the mapping is, of course, different RTK or VRS workflows. So again, if someone's familiar with the DJI products, they've done RTK workflows. All the ones we were able to test worked. For example, I've got an MLID right behind me right there. MLID Reach 3 works perfectly fine. We also have a product called the Robota RoboTouch, which is another RTK system that also has VRS connection capabilities. It worked perfectly fine as well. We were able to connect to different VRS networks and test those. I won't say which ones specifically, but we tested multiple VRS networks and those work as well. So anyone who's used to having very accurate position in the different ways that we do this, there's a high probability that your equipment will work. All that's pretty standardized. And so if you're using Trimble or Leica or Topcon or anything else, it's probably going to work. That's our assessment. Same with the VRS networks. Some of the other functionality that we want to test are important. Of course, RTK is great, but sometimes you need to post-process, which in common in mapping is post-process kinematic or PPK processing. Anyone that's done this with DJI products is familiar with some of the files it creates, the observation files, the navigation files. All of those files that you're used to were there. We were able to use a software that we sell called RedCatch to do our PPK processing. And again, everything processed as normal. When it comes to building projects, I know, Michael, you mentioned some challenges with Pix4D. A lot of our workflows for photogrammetry, we're often utilizing and recommending Metashape by Agisoft. And everything came in. It was able to read all the XMP data in the imagery perfectly fine. So it had all the position, it had the accuracies, it had the orientations from it. And so we flew one of our bore sites that we use for a lot of our testing that has very accurate survey that's not just done with GPS, but done with leveling equipment for more accurate vertical position. And we flew about 300 feet over that bore site with 80% forward overlap and 60% side overlap. We measured in control points, which were part of our solution. And we also had our checkpoints, which are independent shots that we use to validate the accuracy independent of the model that we've created with mapping. And so the accuracy that we saw was about 0.06 of a foot as far as within the solution, the control points, and the validation shots were just over at 6,200. So just 2,000ths over what we were seeing on the held points. So it was very, very accurate. Again, the only challenges we saw when we did our testing was the mechanical shutter, but that's now been corrected. So very similar experience, for users that are looking for an alternative to a Mavic 3 Enterprise, which is kind of a staple for a lot of survey firms for photogrammetric mapping. This will do the things that you need to do and ideally help you do those for the different customers or places that you're unable to use those.
Love to hear that. Obviously, a few things I would say is, one, if anyone does try out an RTK system and does validate that it works, if you think to send that over to Anzu Support at aloft.ai, because then we can put somewhere on our site things that have been tried and true so that we can validate that. But if you're saying pretty much everything that you've seen, it works, we can bank on that, but I don't want to make you now the spokesperson for it. So the more that we have, at some point we could just say, okay, we crossed the finish line, but it's definitely good to know. Something that Michael said that I kind of want to bring into what you said as well, Christian, is Michael, you said cost value. The reason you use DJI stuff is because of cost value. A lot of times I get asked, why would I choose an Anzu product versus a DJI product? It's like kind of the wrong question, but it really comes down to cost and value. The cost of an Anzu product is going to be more expensive than a DJI product by nature of how we manufacture, where we manufacture. We're not making trillions of these, and we have US support, all this stuff. So it's not going to be the same price as a DJI drone. But there are a few things that are more valuable, like we're not made in China. That may make it so that you can actually use this product out in the field for the jobs that you're doing. There's no geofencing, so you don't have to worry about whether you have airspace clearance or you're not required to do any unlocking. That's a value, but really the comparison between a DJI drone and an Anzu drone, it's not really the decision you're making unless it's country of origin related. If you're talking about value in another way, maybe we have a few points up on a DJI product, but it's really comparing it to the other alternatives, and I think that that's where I mentioned before, like this is a relationship between DJI and Anzu that we have to do this licensing. There is still a gap between what we are, and if everyone here could fly DJI in perpetuity, Anzu Robotics doesn't exist. So that I just want to state that that is what our value is that this is about longevity, and it's mostly tied up in country of origin. As we mature and as the Aloft app matures and as we get more feedback and we spend more time developing, there could be things that it's just like Anzu just does it right with the Aloft air control app. We just do, support, service, fulfilling orders, and being cozy with our customers, right? And those could be the additional values. But right now, it is purely just solving that what do I buy next if I can't buy this type problem. Yeah, I think that covered what I was going to say. So, Christian, Michael, I'll come back to you. David, tell us a little bit about you, why you ended up with us, why you were willing to get the guns out for the photo of flying the Anzu and put that out publicly. Like you're not ashamed of flying the green machine.
Not a bit. Hopefully my microphone's working a little bit better now. I had to switch over.
Much
Okay,
better, my friend.
great. Honestly, what got me into Anzu was a matter of having to put my money where my mouth was. I've heard all the controversy about the DJI, and I've always been a defender of them, saying, look, it's what I need to fly to get the job done. And I've always told everybody, as soon as there's an American company that comes out with a product that's on that level, even if it costs more, I'm going to buy it. I'm going to support an American company. And then you guys developed a product that made me have to spend some money, and that's good because I haven't looked back, and I've ran into some people that had very similar outlooks on drones. Some large power companies now, even though they're not regulated by the government to fly American drones, they've just said, look, we're a critical part of the infrastructure. We're kind of nervous to fly DJI drones, but I've talked to one personally. They're like, our pilots really don't like the alternatives. So I was able to show them DJ or an Anzu drone, and they were blown away. They're like, this is what we're used to. This is what we want. So I think I was really, really happy to see that the user interface was familiar. Just the characteristics of the drone, the flight of the drone is familiar. It's just a great bird to fly. So I'm thankful that you came out with this product and you're working with Aloft, and the user interface and the software is grown by leaps and bounds, in my opinion, and it's getting a lot better every update. And one more thing before I pass this back over, yeah. I was really impressed with the strength of the sync after the aircraft after the drone syncs with the controller, the strength of that signal. I had an opportunity to work with MITRE a couple weeks ago, and they had asked me, and I think I sent you that video, if I thought I could launch this Raptor off the back of their Mace, which is some kind of automated experimental vehicle. And the reason they were questioning it is because of all the RF that's coming into that vehicle and coming out of that vehicle. And at this event, there were people about 100 feet away running counter UAS software about 100 feet away. And it was one of those, of course, we weren't drinking because we were flying drones, but it was kind of a hold my beer kind of moment. Just, yeah, hold my beer. I got this. And it was able to take off from the back of that moving vehicle with all the RF interference with no satellite lock. It wasn't able to get locked on the satellite, but that's understandable. But it took off and flew just fine. So that really impressed me, just the strength of that sync after it synced up.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, David. And I have come to know you guys just based off of this Anzu experience that we've kind of shared in. And I'm grateful for you guys, putting your money where your mouth is, or giving an alternative a chance, doing the work to try something that there wasn't, testimonials for you to work off of, there wasn't a blueprint for you to work off of, and teaching us so much as we're improving the product. I want to give you guys just an opportunity if there's anything else you guys want to say, because we went into time pretty well. And also if you could note, and we'll just go back through the line one more time, if you could note whether you're okay with me sharing your contact information with the people that have attended, because maybe they'll have questions, maybe you could solve, a headache that they have in trying to do the same thing. I don't want, or you could tell me that after, but it would be good to be able to give them some reference or somebody that they trust in the space to reach out to. So again, maybe we could take that offline, so you're not being like, nah, I'd rather you not share it. So maybe let's do that after. But honestly, like, I want to say thank you now for taking a chance on me, taking a chance on the company we're building. I think that I feel confident in the product we're building and the intention of why we're doing what we're doing. But it doesn't exist if there are not people that are willing to raise their hand and be like, yeah, I want that. I'll try that. I'll build around that. So Michael, do you want to just give some parting thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, so far been happy with what we've seen over those first couple of iterations. Like some people have mentioned, I'd really like to see orbits out there, and then, slope modes and stuff, because we do that in our normal work. But so far we've been really happy with it, and happy with the support we've gotten from, the team at Aloft and stuff when we ask questions. So I look forward to the future of it. And we'll test it out and put it in situations and let you know any, feedback, positive or negative. And then with regards to if anybody wants to reach out to me, I'm on LinkedIn, feel free. I don't mind answering questions about any of this stuff to help people out.
Perfect. Appreciate you that. And I also expect I'll be following more about what you guys are doing over at ESI. And if you ever need support from the hardware side, you know where to reach me. Christian, any final thoughts on your side?
Yeah. From BAMTech's standpoint, right? I'm going to try to avoid any of the political lines, right? But our goal is to help support our customers with the tools that to help them get the job done, and the choices of the tools that they use. Hopefully, they're making informed decisions, and we're helping contribute to that. I can say from our experience that, again, it checks a lot of the boxes for our customers. When it comes to the build quality, it seems to be great. And when it comes to, Anzu's responsiveness, as we kind of went through this journey of discovering what was working, what wasn't, has been phenomenal. So it checks a lot of boxes for us as far as what our customers are looking for.
Appreciate that, Christian. And David, let's wrap it up with your final thoughts, sir.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to point out too, from a sales and service side of this drone, I've been able to go to several public service agencies and say, actually, they asked me at first, the loudspeaker that they had from DJI, if they've had to put all their DJI stuff on the shelf, the loudspeaker, the batteries, all this can potentially be a cost savings thing for them because it doesn't transmit or receive anything, and they're happy about that. But also, Randall, just wanted to say thank you, and Josh, thank you. You guys are making a great product, and I'm just glad to be on the forefront of it and be out there promoting it for you and making people aware.
Amazing, my brother. And not to touch into the geopolitical stuff either, but we all know that drones provide an extreme advantage for data capture, whether you are a public safety agency or you're doing engineering work. Drones have been a game changer and driving the price down, and the intelligence and utilization of them up has been transformational from an economic standpoint, from a safety standpoint. And DJI is currently the only drone manufacturer that makes millions of drones and millions of people are flying them. We want to give an obvious solution. And the only way we could be obvious is if we get our feature set to be exactly, where people want it to be, alongside of getting the data to be as secure as possible and the data that's captured to be processed in the way you want to process it. We are 4 months in. We are at the first iteration of this as far as as an organization. I take the feedback very seriously. I listen closely to the feedback that comes back from you guys and from anyone out in the market, whether you've purchased your first drone or not. I'm listening to what we can do to be a better company. So I appreciate you guys coming on and sharing your thoughts. Just know that my commitment to you and commitment to everyone on here is that we can only get better, and we intend to get better. So again, thank you. We will go through Q&A shortly. Oops. I just want to show this. So we will be showing stuff at ComUAV Expo in a few weeks in Vegas, be at Drone Nerds annual event Elevate UAV in Miami, Horizons, which is Drone Deploys event in October as well, and then the Interpol event that is I think there's more than one a year, but anyways, it's going to be in Texas in late October as well. So if you're going to be at any of these shows, you want to get hands-on with one of the Raptors, you could do it there. You could also contact us, sales@anzurobotics.com, and we can try to schedule something if you want to get face-to-face with our drones. Now, for the Q&A stuff, obviously, Christian, Michael, David, if you guys want to hang, cool. I don't know, it's up to you, but we'll just go through as many questions as we can. I know we're over, so we'll probably spend like the 12 minutes. Josh, is that cool by you? Okay, so I'm going to crank through them just from top to bottom, what I see, and we'll just try to give you as much information as possible. First question that I see is whether we'll create a multispectral Raptor. So obviously we made an M3E and M3T version, and the M3M, the reason we didn't make a multispectral version is when we started on this journey, we didn't think that multispectral capture was as tied up in this geopolitical country of origin problem. We knew that public safety was tied into that, and then having an RGB drone just made sense. As the legislative threats to DJI technology have increased, we will definitely adjust to that. So whether that's a multispectral drone, whether that's smaller, low-cost drones that could suffice for training and just like, the gateway drug to everything else in the drone space, we'll likely build. We're looking at Avata stuff. We've had conversations about M30 and M350. So we're talking about all the ways that this could go. Multispectral is not lost on us, but if we release the multispectral drone in December, that doesn't do anything good for growers that are really starting to shoot stuff in April. So we already missed the growing season, obviously, for this year, but we're looking into what we could do for multispectral in the future. Again, not forgotten, but also just challenging. And that was actually asked multiple times, so I'm glad I answered that. Somebody asked about bringing in M3E missions into the Raptor. I do not believe so. I think you have to create them because there's no importation of files, and with the KMZ and KML, it's only the ones that are built on the Raptor.
Yeah, so not yet.
Yeah, not yet. We're answering everything as it is today.
Yeah.
Question about being blue, whether we're on the blue list. No. We are not on the blue list. The blue list is a DoD function through DIU. Could we in the future get on blue? Maybe. My intention is not to be a defense supplier, because once you're a defense supplier, they eat up all your supply, they drive everything down. There's a lot of demand, and we are here to support the civic and commercial user of our drones. The temptation of working with US government or other governments and militaries, like there's always like a possibility. And as legislation grows, and if it's like in Florida where you at some point had to be blue listed, we would look into that more seriously. But we're not there today. We wouldn't be able to pass because we are not NDAA compliant today with our products. So it's not blue today. It's not green. In the future, it could be. But my philosophy on the whole thing is like, once it's necessary, we reevaluate. But right now, it's not necessary for us to suffice what our mission was, which is supply a drone that's non-Chinese from a non-Chinese company with data security all in the United States, and allow people to fly those missions for utilities, like David said, where they're just like, I don't want to be flying DJI stuff on our, with our infrastructure, so we want to fly something else. That was our initial purpose, and that's where we're at today. Someone said, what sets Raptor apart from other, what sets Raptor apart and what are the advantages of Raptor's automated flight programming over DJI? So I mentioned this earlier. I'll just cover it in like a sentence. The advantages of Anzu is a country of origin and data security situation. It is no geofencing, and it is having, a different company to work with that's nimble and working with you more closely. Where as a former DJI employee, a former DJI partner, it's hard to get into the infrastructure of DJI and make your voice heard. And that's the case with most manufacturers. But I think I'm pretty unique as a CEO of a company where I get in the weeds. I am present with users and hear the feedback directly. But it's not a technological advantage at this point between Anzu and DJI. If you're comparing Anzu to other manufacturers, sure, there's a lot. The data link is going to be much more secure or much more reliable as far as when you're flying out in distance, when you're flying in challenged areas. The data link that we have is going to be far superior than most manufacturers. Flight time is good. The data quality is really good. The hardware and robustness of the hardware is really good. But that's not comparing it to DJI, but other manufacturers. I want to get to some that you guys could help answer, but most of this is about hardware stuff. Someone asked about part sourcing in China and how it's not a Chinese origin product. I mean, that's exists everywhere. That's not a drone only problem. When you source things from out in the world, microchips, things like that often come from Asian countries, for instance. It doesn't mean that if you put it in a US product that it's now still an Asian product. This is about manufacturing country of origin, and the amount of components within our products was sufficient to be labeled a made in Malaysia product. But when we're talking about checking boxes, we are going to go down the path of becoming NDAA compliant and checking off more of those boxes so more people can use our technology. This is just the beginning. Let's see. Can Anzu products also use N-Trip when outfitted with the RTK module? Do any of you? Yeah, there's just a nod. Yes. Have you done it, or are you just?
Yep.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's a common way that you connect to RTK. So we've connected multiple N-Trip servers to it, and everything works fine. So that's VRS and that's RTK.
Yep.
Perfect. Let's see. So we have 6 minutes left, and then all the questions that you've asked, whether we answer it here or not, I'm going to send out an email with those answers. It's just I'm looking for ones that can be that either we haven't talked about earlier in any way, or that can be answered by these guys. Okay, here's another one. Can the Raptor connect with an MLID Reach 2 GPS based receiver for network RTK connection? Yes? No?
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, I've done a 3. I have not done a 2. I can't confirm it, but
I've done a 2+ and a 3. So
Perfect. Well, I think that's good enough answer for now, but it came up. Let's see. Someone asked, are there plans for the SDK with third-party apps? So let me just quickly give a little bit of the landscape of that. When we had this SDK, we obviously the Aloft air control stuff is built on that SDK, but we knew we wanted to broaden the ecosystem for more third-party apps to not make it so that we were all funneling everything into one workflow. You're waiting on us to develop more with Aloft to do some of these things. So we started with Drone Deploy because not only are they a very large provider for their customer base, but also they've worked with the DJI SDK a ton. They have a lot of cybersecurity synergies with what we're trying to accomplish. They work closely with Aloft as well with other things. And so Drone Deploy, we isolated them to do this first so that we didn't have 24 or 36 developments happening all at once, finding the same issue, and we hear it a million times, we fix it, and then we, keep iterating with everyone. So as we've gotten through this Drone Deploy integration, we've cleaned up a lot of things and made it a lot better, learned a lot about that SDK that we didn't know. As of last week, I heard that they are ready to go sometime this week, but I'm not holding them to that. So I think within, the month of August, you will see Drone Deploy be available on the controller. We're thinking about how we're going to manage that, but it's likely that it will be very easy to get Drone Deploy onto the Anzu controller, and you could use their free app, which you could do different mission planning stuff that doesn't exist on the Anzu drone or on the air control app, or you could use their full enterprise suite on there as well. Once that happens, we are going to start creating a broader ecosystem. Somebody specifically asked about DroneLink. It's interesting you asked that because DroneLink is going to be very closely behind that for circumstances that are kind of behind the scenes, but DroneLink is pretty well ready to move forward with that. There is an entirety of organizations that have reached out to us saying, we want to develop on this. They have not received the SDK yet, but they will. So what I will say to, I believe it was you, Christian, that you said you put UGS on there. So that will work now. It may not work soon, and then it will work again when they go through our SDK, if that makes sense.
That was going to happen. No, it makes. I've developed on DJI platforms before. I figured that's going to happen.
So when developers know what they're doing, you can get an APK and put it on. But what you're doing is basically just flying it as it had, like, outside of the air control, outside of the Aloft space, right? So the call outs are going to be calling DJI call outs, not going to be part of the Aloft SDK call outs. So again, at some point, we're going to say whitelisted apps only. Then we're going to say whitelist the app, and then we'll build it on the Aloft version of the SDK, and then it will work. Yes, sir.
I got a quick question, I guess, for you and Josh. On that note, when that happens, for people who have already written some DJI stuff, will it hopefully, as far as their code base, pretty much be a copy and replace for
it's
that primary class to get rid
of? It's
of?
not one-to-one. There is some work, but that work should not be significant.
Okay, excellent. That's good to know.
Yeah. So we feel very confident that you will not have too much of a jarring experience when there is that transition, but that transition is to make sure that you don't fly an Anzu drone with Pix4D, or let's say you side loaded something and then you're like, why am I geofenced? Well, because you're not talking to what we built, you're talking to existing infrastructure on the DJI SDK. And so we want to make sure that the experience with an Anzu drone is always the same, not particular to what third-party app you're using. And so you would have that experience now where it would, I mean, it's green, but it would be very much like a different manufacturer's experience when we want to provide you the Anzu experience, if that makes sense. So for those that have done it, do it until you can't do it. No one's going to stop you, but at some point you're going to be like, oh, that worked and now it doesn't. It's for this purpose, and it's not to keep you from, not to make it a pain in your butt, but to just do it the right way. And we're getting very close to that. We got like 1 minute left. Let's see. Okay, so Josh, this is a question for you. But I know the answer. Will there be a subscription requirement to be able to use the Raptor for aerial photogrammetry?
Yeah, so let me just nail that one down real quick. That was one last thing I did want to cover. The answer is no. You can utilize the free version of air control for flight planning. That said, an enterprise license of air control is $400 a year. That is crazy competitive pricing compared to some of the competitors or other platforms out there. And that opens up all the fleet management, all the live streaming and operations side of things. Of course, Lance is always going to be free, but flight planning will be free as well. Hopefully that answers that question.
So when you buy an Anzu drone, you do not need to pay for a subscription of anything to do the things that we're talking about here, other than if you want to do live streaming or you want to manage your fleet and all that stuff through the Aloft Enterprise stuff. That's an additional thing. But Anzu is not charging any subscriptions for anything, and hopefully that will be the case forever. I will say that's my intention, but the world could change to where it makes sense, but it's not where we want to go with addition like annual fees or anything like that. You buy your drone, you have the capability to do everything you need to do to operate it. Okay, so again, I'm going to painstakingly take the 80 questions that have been asked and compile them and put them in categories and answer them with some help from the Aloft team as well. You will see that in an email. We did record this session. I will put that video up. If you need anything from myself or from the Aloft team, you could reach out to the emails here. Also, there is Anzu support at aloft.ai for any technical findings that you want to share. You could also reach out to Christian, David, and Michael via LinkedIn if you would like. They could choose whether they respond and how quickly they respond as well. But I want to say thank you for your time being a part of this, whether you've attended and listened in or you're part of the panel here that has shared their insights. This is how we grow together. This is how we get to know, from each other's experiences and mistakes and all of that. So thank you. And let's just keep building this thing together. We'll talk soon and see you guys at ComUAV if you'll be there in Vegas in 2 weeks. Take it
Cheers,
easy, guys.
everybody. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, of
everyone.
course.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you guys. Appreciate it.